Okay, I'm Jonathan Dickinson.
I'm Jose Inzunza.
And I'm Trevor Millar, and this is the Ambio Podcast. It's been a while, boys, and it's exciting times. We've got another in-house guest. Yeah. Anything we need to cover before we introduce our fabulous guest? How have you guys been?
I've been doing good. I think people that have been listening for a while know we're both about to have babies.
Yeah.
And so we're just doing baby stuff and getting ready.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
I wrote my week's to-do list today, and one of the things on the to-do list was build a crib. I can guarantee you I've never put build a crib on my to-do list before.
It's a fun thing to do, man.
And I built the...
In Mexico, you could do that, dude. In Canada, they'll come for you. You can't do a homemade crib. That's illegal. I swear.
It's not like I'm a freaking carpenter. I'm taking the Amazon box and opening it.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was your birthday this week, Jonathan. Happy birthday.
Thank you, guys.
We're going to celebrate that tonight, along with Ruby Avizu's
She was
birthday.
just today.
She's our fabulous medical director.
Yeah, if you've been her.
Down here once.
Yeah, you likely know her if you've been down.
Yeah.
The backbone of operations.
She is. She
from
really
Ambio.
is. Ruby's the best. Thank you, Ruby, for all you do. I hope you hear this.
We love you, Ruby.
Yeah. So we are very excited about our guest today. Angela has become a friend through, I guess, just initially you coming here is where it all started, right? I can't even remember how you originally heard about us. I guess it was through Amber Capone and the team at Vets Incorporated. But I'll let you introduce yourself. But first of all, I will say welcome to the Ambio Podcast, Angela Skudin.
Well, thank you, Trevor and Jonathan and Jose. I'm very excited to be here. It feels like time has been so fast and so slow in the same time. I met you guys through Vets, through Amber Capone. I had gone through a really traumatic event, a death of self, if you will, and with the loss of my husband, who was a friend of Marcus and Amber. So I knew Marcus's whole story, and I had sat with Iboga prior to meeting you, and in a not so supportive setting, in a very dangerous kind of living room Iboga setting that is kind of the reason that inspired me to begin this organization and why I'm sitting here today. So
Yeah, you're the founder of the 343 Fund, which we'll get into in more detail later on, but it's an amazing nonprofit that anyone can donate to, which is kind of similar to what Vets Incorporated is doing, but for first responders. You are issuing grants to first responders to come for treatments at places like Ambio that offer psychedelic healing modalities. And it's amazing. And you've sent a bunch of guys through us. You have another group of 5 guys through this week, which is incredible. So thank you and congratulations. And it's heartbreaking how it came to be, but the way you're leveraging it into such a positive thing has been amazing. So I really look forward to getting into all that.
yeah, I'm over here laughing. I'm kind of smiling internally because when I met you, we'll take it back to how I met you.
Yeah.
I was speaking to Kai, called Marcus, and I said, I need soul surgery. I couldn't move forward really with the death of my husband. He did so much for me. He was a decorated New York City firefighter and a CrossFit coach, a triathlete, and a part of the FDNY Mentor Mentee program, an ocean lifeguard, just the all-around do everything, great dad. And I had been through a plant medicine healing journey prior to meeting you guys that got me off of Western modalities, basically, and got me free from a bunch of stuff: Lyme disease, Babesia, Bartonella, relapsing fever, Borrelia, mold toxicity, Morgellons disease, heavy metal poisoning. I kind of ran the gamut on the tick-borne illnesses and the environmental diseases that gave me this. I mean, in the long run, it was a gift, all of these diseases. When I was in the middle of my suffering, I couldn't see it that way. But since finding psychedelic therapies, I have not seen a doctor for it. I haven't even had a cold, no sniffles, nothing in 4 years and running. And I seem to be doing the same for my youngest child. So kind of just being able to more intuitively listen to my body and give it what it needs in advancement of getting sick. So I knew I didn't want to go to pharmaceuticals after my husband had passed. Of course, the first thing that they offer you is, they want to give you Valium and something to sleep. They're offering you that at the hospital when you go through something like I went through, sudden death. In my case,
even like right away.
I'm sorry?
Even right away.
Right away.
Yeah.
They're, I think that's their nurturing way. They think that's, they're offering something to you that's going to help you out. Here I was, a widow, and my youngest was in the hospital. We just had an accident where a tree actually fell on our entire family, and it took the life of Casey, my husband. And it was an interesting thing for me to look back on now, because in the midst of it, when it was happening in that moment, I was actually 6 weeks post ayahuasca journey, and my integration of my ayahuasca journey ended up being my husband's death. So that was just a lot to unpack. But I don't think I could have been as successful as I was from just a mental perspective, a psychological perspective, without the assistance of that journey prior to his death. I have found so much, even from Ibogaine in that regard as well. The first I did, like I say, I did Iboga in a completely unrecommended manner and in a way that could have ended my life. But when you are suffering so bad and no doctor can give you relief, you're only being offered surgeries that aren't making sense, and you want to die, it's not that big of a deal to do living room psychedelics. Yeah.
So what was that setup like when did you choose to do that, and what was going on?
Yeah, why don't you step back into the whole healing journey that led you to that? Yeah,
so in 2018, my body started breaking down the summer of 2018. I had an injury just playing lacrosse with my son, just had tore ligaments in my ankle. And everybody has that straw, right? That's just going to take you over the edge. And that was my straw. That single incident just put my body into a healing state that it couldn't provide for. And I just started digressing. Gums started receding. I had a tear in my hip that they wanted to operate on. I had spinal stenosis, left side scoliosis, degenerative disc disease, a piriformis nerve impingement. And this was all just happening within like a 6-week period of time of that initial injury, just the ligament injury. And then it just cascaded. Excuse me. So I have this injury, all these injuries, and it's just cascading, and no doctor knows what's wrong. I'm being offered surgeries, and they're not making sense because my pelvis is hurting really bad. Now, from what I know about trauma now, specifically, there's a lot of trauma that gets held in your pelvis. So very common to be experiencing pelvic pain when your body's been pushed over the limit. So because they couldn't explain that pelvic pain, I said no to all the surgeries and started this different healing path that included bee venom therapy combo.
Bee venom therapy? Let's pause there. Yeah. How does that work?
That one was tough. It's exactly what You say it is. They haven't found, at least when I did it, I haven't researched it lately, there was no good way to get the venom out of a bee unless you did it from the old traditional method.
Which is just getting stung.
Just get stung, yeah.
Did that help at all? I've heard of people doing that.
You get like a few times, right?
Lots of times.
Yeah, because you need to create this anaphylactic reaction to get you over the edge, like Campbell.
Yeah, so
Kind of the same.
exactly the same. So I piggybacked those two modalities to do that. So basically break it all down to build it back up. So I started bee venom with a traditional bee venom protocol, if you want to call it a traditional protocol. It's literally just people with Lyme disease that are not doctors that have come up with these methods to heal. You have to keep that in mind when you're doing anything like this too, that this person's just said, this is what works for me. But they're really trying to sell this specific protocol as an industry standard in something that there's no industry in. So I like to tell people that so that you know you might need more, you might need less. You got to kind of feel it out. I started with with two, I think. I don't start anything by the directions. You're supposed to just do one and see what happens. But
Just one bee, one sting?
one bee, one sting. How do you get the bees, right? Yeah. You watch somebody on TikTok and you do everything that they say.
So you just did this by yourself?
Totally.
Is this like a specific bee?
This is a honeybee. A honeybee. You need a honeybee. So, oddly enough, surprise, people with Lyme disease are beekeepers. So you can order bees online from these beekeepers. I got mine from a beekeeper in North Carolina, Pollen Peddlers. They ship you the live bees. I'm on the East Coast, so you'd want to get someone on your coast.
Yeah.
So once a week, we ordered bees. It was the cheapest therapy I did, the least expensive. I shouldn't say cheapest. It's such a dirty word, cheap. The least expensive modality that I used. I think it cost me $25 a week to order bees, maybe $30. I had a really great relationship with the UPS man because during the winter, you're working against time to make sure that they're not going to die. And I started this protocol for 15 months. It initially started with just 10 stings along the spine. Once every 3 days with a big detox protocol in between that. I learned later that heavy detox protocol is actually just detoxing everything out of your system. There's no biological free lunch. You kind of just have to sit in it and have your body naturally do what your body does. That's what I found to be the most effective, at least for me. I did 10 stings every third day. My husband would sting me. We had a little beehive in the bedroom where he got really into feeding them. You know, you just feed them honey and bee candy, and you spray.
So you create a relationship with them.
Totally. I mean, and you got these things that the Hertz effect alone of bees is incredibly healing. So you've got these bees. I had a Himalayan salt lamp, with the hives. You have two hives because you can't mix the two different colonies of bees. One of the colonies will win. So you have two hives, your two shipments, and bees' lifespan is very short. They're here to work. They're literally just here on Earth to work, and they're each given a specific task. So I did that for about 10 months. I kind of got to just a stuck point where it's just like, it was good. I was like 80% better, but I wasn't 100% better. And I started doing psychedelics then when I get to that stuck point.
But you were doing Cambo at the same time as the bees?
Same time. I was doing that about 3 times a month.
We all know what Cambo is, but I'm sure a lot of our listeners don't. Can you explain that?
So Cambo comes from the giant green monkey frog. It's another Amazonian medicine. In an ideal situation, the shaman calls this frog down from the tree via song, and they kind of tie up the limbs of this frog, and it creates a stress response. You can imagine if you're kind of tied up, you're going to get a little bit sweaty. So this secretion that comes out of the glands gets mistaken for a poison a lot of the time. It's not a poison. It's really just a predatorial deterrent that will help the frog. If an animal picked it up and put it in its mouth, it would taste that combo and it would immediately drop it out. If you've ever tasted combo, you will know why you would do that. And the sense of what we use it for from a healing mechanism, it's then transferred to a stick, and then that's wrapped in a plantain, dried on that stick, wrapped in a plantain leaf, and sent off to the States. It is legal in the States to do this modality, which is kind of probably why it's becoming so popular. It is, you then wet that stick, spit on it is a traditional way. Take a little knife, get that waxy secretion kind of alive again, and burn some holes on your arm. I bet everybody here has some combo marks.
Holes just
camera can probably pick up these white dots.
like you're just going through the first 2 layers of skin. So you use a little incense stick, and so it's a subdermal application, right?
Yeah, it's not
a blister.
totally just a little. Nothing too intense, we're not marking you for rituals or anything. We're just giving you a little medicine here, and it is that subdermal application. And then it kind of it's intelligent medicine. You don't really know what it's going to do. I think you've sat with combo, Trevor, and Jonathan, have you ever sat with combo?
Yeah,
we all have.
it's saved my ass.
I have put it here in my neck.
Yeah.
In the top. Yeah, it's
It's
I love
incredible.
it. We love it.
It's
We love
not
it.
technically psychedelic.
No.
It's got a certain euphoria that comes on instantly but quickly passes. And then it is just the most purgative, but you can feel it kind of scanning your body and going where it needs to go.
Heat, swelling, sweating,
Tons of purging.
puking,
It really
shitting.
is an aggressive anaphylactic reaction. Control it.
And you feel like $1 million after.
I love
It's
it.
only about 20 minutes long kind of thing.
It's like the worst fever that you had comes on real quick.
But now that we have that parameter, I want to ask you, like, in terms of the bee venom and that, what was like for you harder or stronger
And you're gonna ask
Or
me
more
that
beneficial
question.
too.
and more beneficial too? Yeah.
That is, well, more beneficial is difficult to say. I'm gonna say why, because I used all of these modalities kind of to heal. It would be like me saying what was more beneficial to me, Ibogaine or ayahuasca.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So I can't really answer that question. If you have Lyme disease, if you have cancer, both of these modalities are becoming pretty. I'm not gonna dare to say standard of care. That would just be in my dream world. But they're becoming a really popular alternative. If I had to today, if you were like, do you guys want to, what are we going to do, 10 bee stings or a combo ride? I'd be like, let's get some buckets.
Yeah.
Awesome.
10 bee stings it's the bee stings is the most intense thing I've ever done. Both have a stop point.
And you do it in the spine, you say?
So I did it in the spine for 10 months. After the 10 months, I actually ended up hiring a scientist who was knew everything about bee venom therapy from his own healing with rheumatoid arthritis. And he had researched it back to the ancient Egyptians and what they were using bee venom for. So just a science nerd, I hired him. He lived in Connecticut. He came down to my house and he taught me about all the points of pain in the body. Basically a meridian system, just the energy points in your body. So it was all tied kind of to that ancient Chinese medicine. And it made sense to me then when he explained it. But what he explained to me, I didn't care for. He told me that in order for someone like me that had kind of a full body, just rampant with disease, just head to toe, where I had neurological dysfunction, heart issue, endometriosis, but they didn't know for sure, but I was too weak for them to go in and look, full body pain, these mast cell activations constantly, sores all over my body from head to toe, just losing handfuls of hair. So I kind of just had it systemically, and if you have something like that systemically, then you're going to have to treat it systemically. So that meant we upped the bee stings, and we started doing 19 to 26 stings every 4 days. And I took the detox protocol out so that my body could work on my immune system just starting over and then rebuilding.
So does it go systemically, like you do it somewhere central and then it gets distributed to your body, or do you have to sting all over the place?
So, when you're doing, if anybody's ever done acupuncture before and they're putting those needles in, and if you can feel that connection, when you can feel it when it jumps to the next one, that's how it works if you're stinging on your meridians with the bee venom. So I could actually at times, with the nerve damage I had in my body, if it was going after the nerve areas, if I'm stinging where I had the nerve damage, it was like fire just running through your veins. That's when you knew you really did a good job. And
So you will find like specific dermatomes where it was the pain there. You was just going there.
So you're finding the points of pain on your body. For me, I had just a lot of points to choose from. But you would find a line, and then so for me, I would stick to either I'm going to do the upper half of my body, we'll just go 26 stings, head to bottom of the spine. And then we'll work on the legs. We'll work on bringing all that back. So I would switch areas, but then you just go for it. And I kept all the bees. It was very important to me to honor the bees that were part of my healing, and I kept them all in a jar, and I would put them in the freezer, and I saved them all up, and then I would go on a hike whenever the jar got full, and I would either release the bees in a stream and just kind of giving thanks for my healing, or bury them at the top of a mountain, just depending on what kind of a hike I did. And I feel like the gratitude portion of your healing is just a game changer as far as what can happen for you, not only from a positivity perspective, but just from that medicine, if you honor it. And the same kind of thing goes into when we send people for psychedelic grants to you guys, kind of talking about those intentions going forward and making sure that you're forming a relationship with that medicine. I was forming a relationship with the bees and their medicine, just like you're forming a relationship with that frog if you're doing combo. So, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you did a lot.
A lot of that, yeah.
Thousands.
And my husband, I think, had a harder time with it than I did sometimes, just because.
What's the technicality? Like, how do you get one bee to sting you?
Tweezers. Yeah. And a lot of people, you can use the CO2 cartridge to just kind of gas them a little bit, give them a little sleepy. I never did that. We just used tweezers, and not the kind that clamp hard, the little scientific ones. Get them in there, and then you just give them a little tap on the butt. So it's hard because bees don't die right away. Their little central nervous systems keep going, but that's also the amazing thing about bees, right? I've seen a bee carcass head only walking across the counter 45 minutes after I stung.
Wow.
So yeah, there's a lot going on in that little bee body.
So how did that progress then? You did combo, you did bees, you kind of reached the end of the line and then turned to other psychedelics?
Isn't that just a natural progression to Iboga?
It kind of is.
It sounds like fun.
Oh man.
Fun and painful.
So I actually found Iboga from combo. You've got these white boy healers that go around to they find Peru, and they
come back and call themselves shamans.
They get themselves a connection, maybe their friend has a connection to some guy in Gabon that's sending him some Iboga. I actually journeyed with Iboga once with counterfeit Iboga. So this guy I found from combo, he was the guy the person that was serving me. Doesn't everything happen in a yoga studio? Isn't that where all of these things begin? It was from yoga. Yeah. I started yoga reluctantly in 2020, and January 2020. And one of the kids, at the yoga studio, this long-haired, blonde, surfer-looking dude that was super flexible, and one of the yoga teachers had this connection with a guy that had combo and Iboga and Bufo and in California. And he came to New York, and a bunch of us did not a bunch of us, but 4 of us did. I didn't know the other people. We just met at my house, and it was me and 3 other girls. And he had his boombox, and he put on the Bowetti music, and he said, be real careful because you're going to projectile vomit and you will think that you're going to make it and you won't. And I learned about that night. I ate so much Iboga and
Just straight root bark?
just straight root bark and puked so much that night. And I didn't have a lot of visuals. I've heard people now that I've heard so many Iboga stories and Ibogaine stories. It's very similar. My journey with Iboga and then my 2 journeys with Ibogaine were very, wouldn't notice a difference in that medicine except the amount that you have to take and then the amount of vomiting that occurs with the journey.
It's the digestion and metabolism, but once you get into it, it's the same.
Yeah.
Very familiar territory, yeah.
Much easier on Ibogaine. The buy-in for Ibogaine is just so much easier. So
Thanks God for the hydrochloride.
amen.
Here, have a pill as opposed to here, eat this acrid sawdust.
Yeah. So I had just a long night, just a lot of vomiting. And the next morning, I remember one girl didn't even get into she didn't vomit or anything, but he gave her so much medicine. She was stuck. She was from Detroit. She just had to stay in my spare bedroom for I want to say 2 extra days. Like, this girl wasn't getting on a plane, you know. These were, of course, piggyback these journeys with Bufo. And I've had 2 Iboga journeys. One I've done the Bufo after, and one I have not. And the same with my Ibogaine journeys. It was just my intuition saying, you're good. Like, you don't need any more medicine now. Or my intuition saying, I need more. And so I just always try to honor my intuition when it comes to medicine. That said, this one, I didn't have the Bufo afterwards, but I remember being pissed on my gray day. I remember in my room, my husband was just the most patient man. That's why I started the fund that I started after him. I would just be like, hey, I'm just going to have this guy come from California. We're going to be doing this psychedelic in the living room. Can you stay downstairs tonight? Yeah, no problem. No problem. Whatever you need for your healing.
I was going to ask about that because I've heard that from you before, just how exceptional he was through your entire healing process and supportive and never gave up. And
yeah, he was the best support to have through any kind of psychedelic process. He didn't ask me a lot of questions post-journey. There wasn't this need for what did you do? What did you see? Did it say anything about me? There was just no ego on his part in my healing journey. And I was just really gifted to have somebody that kind of stayed out of my way. He just wanted his wife back, really. And he knew if anybody could get themselves back, I was going to find a way to get back. So he kind of just was getting out of my way. And it worked. I think he would see the results too and be like, okay, that wasn't a bad $1,500 that I just spent, $1,500 living in my Iboga. That's a deal, right? No, it's not.
So, but did it give you any insight into, later, obviously you came and did Ibogaine. Did you notice benefits?
Yeah, not the benefits that I wanted.
Yeah.
I expected this epiphany and this big psychedelic experience, especially when you start researching it. I think I read that book, Iboga, by your friend Daniel Brett. And I just was kind of expecting all of that glory. It's almost a disservice, I think, when you do a bunch of research into a psychedelic going into it, because then you've automatically painted this picture in your mind with your ego of what you're expecting. So you've set this expectation that's just an illusion. So I did that, and I was quite disappointed. But I got the greatest gift I've ever gotten from, I think, any healing from my mind from my first Iboga journey. I was in my room and I was feeling like I've just taken this too far this time. I don't even know what I'm doing. I threw up all over my living room. This is crazy. And my mind was quiet for the first time. I don't remember when my mind was this quiet, and it bothered me greatly that I was not, because we like, what is it, 9 times out of 10 we take the hell you know to the heaven you don't.
The ego.
Yeah, yeah. So that silence was really troubling to me, that quiet in my mind. I'd always just was thinking of everything. A lot of grant recipients that I talk about this, so I'm sure you guys hear this all the time. People's minds are just constantly thinking of plan A, B, C, D, and I was one of those people that would just stay up all night long doing that until Iboga. So that night was the first time I slept, and without the assistance of Western medicine or alcohol or anything else to assist me. And I slept through the night, and I've slept every single night through the night since.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah. I really knew it worked. It probably took me a couple of years. The night my husband died, the day my husband died and I was in a hospital bed, I think I really realized the power of Iboga. I wasn't in the hospital, but I was on a couch, like one of those hospital room couches, sharing that with my 19-year-old son, my then 19-year-old son. My youngest son, 12 years old, had quite a few broken bones in his back and his neck, so he was in a hospital bed. And the helicopter kept flying over the hospital to land and bring in the critical care patients. And I would wake up every time the helicopter came. So I'd wake up to, my worst nightmare. My husband's deceased. I'm in another town. I've got to get his body back to New York. My son's in the hospital. And I would be able to say to my mind, don't think about any of that. The only thing you can do for your mind and your body right now is give it rest. And I would turn my brain off and go back to sleep until the next helicopter. Wow. And that's when I knew that gift was from Iboga. So.
Wow.
So, healing journey, Iboga. Are you better after that? How did it go from there?
So, I am better after that. And I have a really good run. I'm off all prescription drugs at this point. We were spending, I think over at one point, $10,000 a month in out-of-pocket expenses just for my prescription care, which is really what led me to psychedelics and bee venom and combo in the first place.
Wow.
Was that I was married to a first responder. We had exhausted all of our prescription benefits, and what happens, they don't really tell you this, but your family prescription plan has a cap yearly, and we hit that cap really quickly when I had Lyme disease. March 1st, we had already gone through our prescription benefits, and then we were left paying 30% of the total cost of every drug that we needed. And I'm sure you guys know a little bit about prescription drug costs, but I think one prescription, I was on doxycycline at the time, and it had been, it was up to, I think, $1,685 for a 30-day supply. So completely unaffordable on something that's got a generic, and it just wasn't accessible. I started ordering drugs from India on my doctor's, advice. Hey, you got to get it in India because you got to take this, and it's 6 cents a dose in India.
Wow.
We started doing that, but then you're running the risk of, are you getting what you're ordering? It's a huge gamble. So. Never mind, it's completely illegal, but people do.
Big Pharma is crazy, man. It's getting it's crazy. Sorry, it's getting crazier.
It was crazier. So it was crazy, but it gave me the path to know that I didn't even need it. So I cold turkey just stopped all of my prescription drugs, but I stayed with my doctor. I didn't tell him I did this. I just would go to the visit, get my blood work done, because I knew I needed blood work to be monitored during my own healing journey. So I needed a doctor for that. And I would just go to the visit. He would give me my next blood work panel, give me my prescriptions. I wouldn't fill them. And then I would go to the next visit. Now it was a televisit, so it was super easy, get my blood work panels. And the whole time I was doing psychedelics and bee venom. And at the end, when I finished healing, we had our last visit, I said, I need to tell you something. And this is the greatest reaction I've ever had from any doctor. I told him what I did, And he said, okay. And he got a pen and he said, tell me everything you did. And he wrote down everything that I did. And he was like, keep me posted. And that was the last time I had an interaction with him. So
how long ago was that?
That was in 2022.
So what are we talking about now? You're not experiencing Lyme symptoms?
None.
Or none?
No, I had 0 back surgeries. I didn't have the hip surgery. My body was, arguably, I'm in better shape now than I've ever been in my life.
And that was after the visit from here, right? And that was before.
Come here, yeah.
That was before, and that was after the root part, pretty much.
And the bee therapy.
After the root bark, I would say that my physical healing had after the root bark that ability to sleep. If you can't sleep, you can't heal.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I ask everybody that comes through here. I say, "How's your sleep after?"
Me too. Every time.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. And when do you stop the bee venom? When do you stop that? When it was like
I did that for that's a great question, because you don't know when do you stop, right? You're gonna sting forever.
Mm-hmm.
I seem to stop everything after I go to Costa Rica. I'll go on vacation and I come back and I'm just like, I'm never doing this again. So after 15 months of doing this, you have to stop V venom and see if it worked, because if you're just keep stinging, you're never going to know. Your body's going to be in an inflamed state all the time, and your immune system's never going to simmer down, your central nervous system, to give you that baseline. So I knew I had to stop for a minute. So I didn't feel 100% better, but I felt pretty good. And I intuitively was like, I think I can stop. And I stopped. And I was good. I just let my bees out, and
Whoa.
I was fine.
That's amazing. So you'd been through a huge healing arc. So before you found out about coming down here, or you called Marcus and said you needed psychic surgery, you were pretty familiar with the territory that you were getting into and what you were looking for. But what was going on then? You physically, you were doing better. What made you know that you had to look again for something else?
My son said to me, I have a history of alcoholism in my family. And my youngest son said to me after we buried my husband, Mom, you're not going to turn into one of those drunk moms, are you? Mm-hmm. And, there's these tools that were given. I whenever I talk to people about the tools that they use to get them here, for me personally, some of the tools in my toolbox are alcohol, cocaine, Adderall, all these things that got me here today, right? So I try to tell people, don't shame yourself over any tools. These are just our tools that we use to get through. So I knew that I didn't want to use any of the old tools that I had, but I also recognized that I was going to need to connect with something greater in order for me to feel comfortable enough to exist here with the tools that I had. What are the tools that I had? Well, my new tools are psychedelic therapies. These things that I knew would work. I knew it would quiet my mind. I knew I could potentially reconnect with my husband. I connected with my husband deeper than I've ever connected with him when I had my ayahuasca journey 6 weeks prior to his passing. So because of that connection that psychedelics had given me, I knew there was just a really good chance that I was going to be able to connect with Ibogaine. I didn't know, if it would be similar. I'd never journeyed with a dead husband before, all my journeying before he'd been alive. So I just really intuitively felt called to the medicine. And I called Marcus. I told him I need soul surgery. He told me he was going to connect me with Trevor. And then I spoke to Trevor, and I came down Thanksgiving 2022.
Let's pause there and go back. The tragic passing of your husband had incredible signs leading up to it. Could you, and there's a reason why it's called the 343 Fund. Could you share that whole backstory? That's the really jaw-dropping part of your story.
So I had, well, when I was suffering with Lyme disease, I've had these instances in my life throughout my childhood and my adulthood where I'll have these dreams that just aren't really dreams. I guess messages, you would say, if you had to label it something. And I had one of those that I had Lyme disease. That's how I found out I had Lyme disease. I had actually a centipede of ticks coming out of these wounds that were in my leg that wouldn't heal at the time. And as they're coming out of me, I just know in the dream, oh, you have Lyme disease. Well, I'd already tested, I think 2 or 3 times at that point for Lyme disease and tested negative. So I woke my husband up and I said, hey, I have Lyme disease. Good news. I know what's wrong with me. He said, no, you don't. You've already been tested for it. And anyway, long story short, I did have Lyme disease. And it was just the testing methods. And we found new testing methods and took a test again. And I, in fact, did have it. And the dream is why I knew to investigate that direction. So in that same light, I had a dream 10 months before my husband passed away, or a vision, if you will, when I was during a retreat. And I was just meditating. It was just, Casey's going to die, and he's going to die before you, young, and it's going to be quick, but you need to prepare. Now, at this point in time, I was just in my healing, and as part of my healing journey, it included not doing any cleaning or cooking or laundry or anything like that. So I was being really well taken care of, so I couldn't have imagined, losing this person. So I made up in my head that he would be 65 years old and it would be a heart attack. That was just the story my ego gave it, and I said, I'm not going to prepare. And that went on until about, I would say, a few months before he died. And I started just thinking about, what if he doesn't come home from the firehouse someday? Or what if he gets hit by a car riding his bike to work? And I then started this mourning process. I'd be in the shower, taking a shower, and I would just, the thought of him being dead and not coming home, and I would just hit the floor in the shower. And so I started by grieving of his death early, a few months earlier than it actually happened, just playing the scenario in my head. I didn't know why I was doing that until he passed, and then I realized that it was just, it was almost gave me this leg up in my grieving process to be able to do what I needed to do as a wife and as a mom, to get my kids through the hospital, get my husband's body home, get the funeral planned, speak at his funeral, give him a proper paddle out service, spread his ashes, and then rest. And so I knew when the tree fell, it ended up falling at 3:43 p.m., which was Casey's favorite number, which we would screenshot and send back and forth to each other, 3:43. And 9/11 he would also screenshot too. And I would always tell him, you're so morbid that 3:43 is your favorite number. In case anybody listening doesn't know what the significance of 3:43 is, it's the number of firefighters that passed away during the 9/11, September 11th attacks from the New York City Fire Department. My husband wasn't present in those attacks, but as a New York City firefighter, just everybody is connected. If you're on that job, you're connected to 9/11. It doesn't really matter when you get onto that job. If you got onto that job today, you would be connected to 9/11. And so I knew immediately, and I don't know in what order, but so fast that like the 343 was what this fund was supposed to be called. I knew what to do. I was just like, you're going to start this fund in his honor. Because there's no access to this for first responders. And I knew at the scene when I saw those first responders, it was just me and them at the scene.
Could you take us through that day a little bit?
Yeah. So it was 2 days before my husband's birthday. He would have been 46 years old, and his birthday was on Father's Day that year. And we were driving to an attraction, and as we had entered the property of the attraction, we were going to tour a house, and a tree from their driveway fell just right at the same time as our vehicle was coming under, boom. And it knocked everybody out except for myself. And
Is that how you know it was 343? Did you see it in the moment?
it's on the report. It's on the 911 call.
Wow.
I had seen 333 that day, I remember, and it was 6/16, June 16th, or the day before, it was 6/16, 333, and I screenshot it and sent it to Casey. So we were vibing with the numbers that day, and that was just something that we always did. So I didn't know at the time that it had been 3:43 p.m., but I had been videoing this whole thing. So I was just videoing the drive, so I actually ended up just with a video of the entire accident of the tree falling, which ended up helping me so much in my grieving process to be able to listen to that again, to put closure to something that literally fell out of the sky and my brain was trying to wrap around. So when I was there with the first responders at this scene, they told me my husband had a pulse. They said, don't give up. He's got a pulse. And I turned around and the guy was holding a chainsaw, this EMT. And I said, listen to me. I'm the wife of a New York City firefighter. And he said, he's a firefighter. And when I said that, his whole demeanor changed. It was just the sinking sadness in his eyes, that they knew that they were working on somebody that, one of them. And I realized at that moment, I was like, this man is going to stay here with my husband. He's going to have to see him, when they get this tree off of him. And every single one of those first responders is taking this scene home with them for the rest of their lives, even probably in a more traumatic sense than what I'm going to have to see, So that was a huge part of my wanting to give back to the first responder community. And then their reaction post that. They came to the hospital. Every member of, the Asheville Fire Department, I think I saw if they were working, they came through. They got me a rental car. They took care of coordinating, getting my husband's body back. They got us to the airport. It was a completely different experience for me being a New York City firefighter's wife than if I had just been a regular citizen. So there's that huge sense of community that exists within the first responder community to take care of your fellow first responders. And so I ended up taking my husband Casey's life insurance policy and funding what is the Casey Skudin 343 fund today. And I told Trevor I was going to do this. I told Trevor when I met him, I said, hey, I probably told Jonathan too. I said, I'm starting a not-for-profit for first responders. And they were like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's an idea that people have had, right? Like it's not an easy thing to do. And we know the value of it and the need for it. So thank you for taking that on. But yeah, it's not a small project.
It's not at all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for, everybody's got their necks out on this one for the greater good. And yeah, so that's when I kind of put it all together that I was going to do this. And then knowing the Capones.
How do you know the Capones?
So Casey lifeguarded with Marcus. They were ocean lifeguards together. Back like when you could still make fun of Marcus, before, when Casey was a little bit taller than him. And then we all know what happened. Marcus grew up. But Marcus was Casey's idol always. So a couple of times we went down when Marcus was deployed and saw Amber and the kids down there in Virginia Beach when they were on that coast. And Casey knew Amber, met her when Marcus was dating her in college. So they went back, and Casey and Amber always got on real well. So having Marcus Capone at Casey, for Casey Skudin to have Marcus Capone at his funeral was hands down probably my husband's favorite part of his funeral, if I had to guess. So
Marcus was here. Marcus was in this house when he got the news, and he was supporting another group. and it was a very VIP group. And he's like, I'm out of here. I got to go do this.
That's, to even know that Marcus left a group to come to Casey's funeral was even more special. But the Capones have helped us out so much just in starting our process with just, letting us, it's not easy to start a grant organization for psychedelic access. It's scary. And there's not the only people that we knew that had forged this road were the Capones. So they were really vital for our whole process. And then, of course, I came down here and met you guys and journeyed and saw. I go through every journey at every. If we're sending people through a facility, I'm going to go sit with that practitioner, and I'm going to see what they're doing for integration. And there's a lot of safe places to access psychedelics that just don't have an integration portion set up. And that's the big difference with Ambio, is the care and coordination that's put into the pre and post journey integration. And that's why we send our grant recipients access Ambio for those reasons. I fully know that everybody's coming home when I send them through your organization. So it's a well-oiled machine.
Thank you. Tell us about, so you got in touch with Marcus, you knew you needed some help after Casey left this realm, and you came down here. Tell us about your time here and your journey here, the first time and then the second time.
So the first time, I wasn't so VIP, so I had to wait. I think I called you and either the end of July. My husband had passed in June, and then either the end of July or beginning of August. You had just actually moved into a new house. I remember talking to you, and you said that when we were talking, I was telling you I was finding a lot of heart rocks after my husband passed, and you'd opened your drawer, and you said, oh my gosh, I just moved into this place with my partner, and there's a heart rock in this drawer.
I remember that rock. Yeah, a pink heart rock.
So I was talking to you then, and I came down with a group of women. I think it was a vets group of women. And for Thanksgiving, we spent Thanksgiving together. 2022 was my first time down here.
So we only had one house still then too.
This house that we're sitting in. Yes. This has been my party house both times. So.
Which is another reason why you had to wait a little bit.
Yeah.
There was a legit lineup.
Yeah. So I came down here for that journey, and it's so hard to separate journeys, I do remember. I remember that journey now. Okay. So we come down here. I remember the sweat lodge was very difficult for me the first time I ever did it. I had so much anxiety in my body from the grief. It's interesting when you go through something, even animals in the wild, your bodies hold on to it and they'll start shaking. My body was doing that after the accident. So I knew no matter what my mind was saying, there's all of this stuff going on in here. So I had that anxiety the first time coming in, and everything was a little bit more difficult, I would say, for me the first time. And I don't really remember. I do remember that journey, but it wasn't like the last journey that I had, the second journey I had a really difficult, I saw visuals. I went through kind of the stuff that everybody talks about, the movie screen stuff, Iboga coming in, cartoony like. There's a lot of stuff, in case you're not people that haven't journeyed with Ibogaine, but the same kind of settings, familiar settings will come through. Yeah. So I had a lot of that going on, but not a real profound psychedelic journey that I could compare to ayahuasca or something like that. Until the second journey, so we'll get to that. So this journey kind of knocked me on my ass. I was in the treatment room after the whole day. I wasn't able to get up. I connected with my husband, but it kind of a cool thing. I was outside and I saw a shooting star fall. It was green. And one of the other girls, Melissa, saw the star too, and she said, I think that's a flare, because it was weird to see this green star. And I said, I thought that too in my head, but if it was a flare, it would have arced, and this just dropped. So I knew it wasn't, but it could have been a satellite, something else, whatever. I go into my journey. My husband comes into my journey. When I say my husband comes into my journey, when people come into the journey, it's not like he's standing in front of me and it's like, oh, Casey, or it's just, you just feel this, you just know their presence is there. That's across the board, I think, with psychedelics, period, at least for me. So I know he's there, and he says to me, I bet you didn't know shooting stars could be green. And that was my favorite thing from my first Ibogaine journey, because I came here to connect with him. That was my whole intention of my journey. And you will get whatever the intention of your journey is. And I certainly got the intention of my journey, and it was to connect with him. So that was great. I didn't know the medicine so much as I do now. So I waited. I didn't have any intention of ever coming back, I don't think, to do any more Ibogaine.
Can I ask though, how was that? I mean, you connected with him how was your feeling about your relationship afterwards? You know what I mean? Did you see, I don't know, other signs like that in the world that could remind you of him? Or how did you process after that experience?
Well, he and I had been speaking a lot post his death. Trevor was talking about those signs. There are so many signs. I've forgotten more signs than I remember, but I was finding just an abundance of feathers and heart rocks after he passed. I'm talking I counted down 200 or something feathers, and there was no cat, in one pile of feathers. It was just individual feathers. I'd be like, is this serious? I'd be on a walk, and I'd be like, I'm going to walk down the street. I've never walked down the street before. And boom, I'd find 4 feathers by the time I rounded the block. And I actually asked my neighbor, do you find a lot of feathers? And she said, well, there's a lot of birds around here. And I thought, oh, okay. And I kind of went with that. But I would be places, and I would find a feather. And I found a feather here after my journey. And so feathers, heart rocks. I was finding heart rocks everywhere. And it happened just for a certain period of time post his passing. And then it stopped. It fizzled out. And that fizzling out was my notice of, okay, these were signs, or this wasn't just commonplace that you're finding feathers and heart rocks all the time. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that was my signs. This connection, though, with the other side that you get from psychedelics just allows you to feel okay being here. I think I've said in the past, I'll still get depressed. I've battled with depression my whole life and suicidal ideations, but I'll still get depressed. But I've said before, when I'm depressed, I think I know too much to be happy here, which is just such an ego-based statement, because there's so much here I haven't even experienced that I don't know anything about, and there's so much about what's past here that I absolutely know nothing about. So, but I think sometimes people feel through their process of integration that you have this ego death and whatnot, and then you feel like the only way that's going to bring you peace, is moving on. You're so resonated with the fact, or just content knowing there's an end to this, that you're just kind of well, all right, whenever we're ready to go to the next adventure. Which is positive and negative. The positive side of that is feeling, acceptance of the guarantee that we have to die. It's better to wrap your head around that. And then the other part about it is forgetting to live. Mm-hmm. So.
It's a nice duality.
Totally. Right. If it exists, I don't know.
Yeah, for me, I think I've heard from different kind of spiritual pathways or spiritual teachers that ultimately it is all empty and meaningless. Therefore, we get to put whatever we want on it. And we should probably, since we're here, just put some happiness on it anyway,
Why not, right? Yeah. A little bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, So
why'd you come back the second time here?
So I ended up coming back a second time. So I told you, whenever I tell somebody I'm going to do something, I have to do it. So I told you guys that I was going to start this organization. So I had to start this organization. So I started it with another woman, our COO, Jill Brodsky, who has been just instrumental in getting this, doing the 343 Fund. It just wouldn't exist without Jill Brodsky. So I have to give her a little shout out. So she had just been in the not-for-profit world for 12 years and looking to get back into the not-for-profit world. And she knew how to do all the back-end stuff, all the stuff that I didn't know how to do. So, yeah, we started just saying we're going to do this, not knowing what that meant. And then it all just waterfalled. You know, I went on a retreat with the Reconsider people. They're a not-for-profit organization that's for just towards the legalization and access, universal access, I would say, to psychedelics. So we sat with them for our first responder group in August and just met other players that came in and helped our organization along. One of them is a retired ESU police officer, Ethan Abend, and he had a psilocybin journey for a TBI. That was kind of the cowboy psilocybin way, finding some ranch in Texas and going down there. So we'd all had these kind of grasping for healing journeys that weren't properly supported. They weren't at proper facilities like Ambio, and we knew everything that we wanted to keep people from doing. And as I speak to more first responders, we've got a guy here in our group that is with us today, and he told me he had been sitting with psychedelics. He told me he had done ayahuasca, and I said, oh, how was your journey? And he said, I didn't really connect with the medicine. I thought, well, that's strange. Where was your ayahuasca journey? He said, in a Marriott, and some guy from Hawaii made the tea.
Oh, man.
I thought, wow. I don't want people thinking that is medicine, you know? So that's dangerous to do, just like it's dangerous to do living room iboga. So, the need for these safe access psychedelic treatment programs is, I don't have to tell you guys, there's such a need for this, and the healing that I've observed just for myself, it basically gave my body the intelligence to intuitively heal itself. Our bodies are these machines, and if you look at an octopus, look at the regeneration that an octopus can do. Okay, we're the ultimate healing machine, and we don't give ourselves the credit that you would give an octopus, and I think that's insane. Mm-hmm. So I think psychedelics kind of remind us that to get out of the way, remind our ego to get out of the way, and let our body be the machine that it is.
How was that journey once you build up this foundation?
Okay.
Get to the community. How was that journey? Because I'm a former firefighter, and I'm an AMT. So it's different, the cultural part here in Mexico. But people is starting to open more to that, you know? The shit that we go and see over here is still the same shit, right? How you open that to the community over there? How they receive that? How is your speech? How is this back and forward of communication about psychedelics?
So there's definitely, since we work with first responders, the way we defined within our organization what a first responder is police, fire, or EMT, paramedic. That's our definition of first responders for who we give grants to. It's easier to speak to the fire community. It's easier to speak to paramedics and EMTs, EMS about psychedelic journeys. And they're usually have got some stories about, oh yeah, I did this, or I did mushrooms, or sat with LSD, went to a Grateful Dead concert, whatever. You've got a story like that from a firefighter. You don't really have those stories from police officers. And there's this moral injury portion that exists with police officers. And that's heavily addressed through our pre-integration process so that they feel they're not being hypocritical in accessing these modalities. But in the beginning, yeah, it was the elephant in the room. So what I did was I found a way. I thought, how am I going to infiltrate like these big departments to get in front of them and let them know that this healing exists, right? It's very difficult to do that in the police department. So I thought, we're going to go in through the firefighters. So I started giving away saunas and cold plunges to elite, like FDNY rescue, FDNY squad. And then
For their stations?
for their houses.
For their houses. Okay, yeah, good.
So that started the conversation of alternative healing modalities, because it's not just psychedelic journeys. When I say I'm giving somebody a psychedelic grant, I'm giving somebody a breathwork grant. I'm giving somebody psychedelic coaching support grant. I'm giving them, potentially, I'm giving them coaching for 6 months up to a year, and then access to an alternative healing modality if they want to. Say they want to go to a cold plunge place. They don't have they're not in one of the firehouses that got one. Then we would give them 6 months to access that healing modality. So it's not just a psychedelic journey. And you guys know the easiest part about a psychedelic journey
is the journey. Yeah.
So I took everything that I had learned from my healing and then kind of just big pictured it and looked at it to see how could I get this to where if I'm going to go up to this grandmother and say, hey, I run this organization for first responders and we give first responders access to alternative healing modalities. Oh yeah, what do you do? Well, we give the squad and rescue houses saunas and cold plunges. I mean, that sounds wholesome, right?
Awesome. Yeah, that's wise.
So when we do fundraisers or whatever, there's something to feel good about within that, even if you are a little bit ignorant to the scientific part of these alternative healing modalities. I was doing a news, like a small town paper interview, local paper, and the reporter said to me, I'm just going to ask the elephant in the room question. Like, do people give you shit for this? Like, are people like, wait, what do you mean you're giving police officers that are not retired, that, you're seeing them for psychedelic journeys? And I said, I always reference the Stanford study. I mean, that's kind of, for Ibogaine, the industry gold standard if you're going to talk about a study. That kind of shuts people up. So I'll tell them, well, it's up to you. You're a news reporter, right? There is literally troves of scientific evidence, and this has just been shut down by misinformation from the 1960s. And if you guys will get out there and look at what's actually happening and the advancements of studies, you can educate the people.
Nice.
Awesome.
So that second journey, did you come with a grant recipient that second journey?
Second journey, I came with a group of first responders. We didn't have our shit together.
Yeah.
Nobody does, right? So we were just like, we weren't doing it right. Nobody does things right the first time.
Yeah.
Unless you cheated.
You just learn. Yeah. You got to learn.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was kind of a last minute thing. There was a dropout of the group that you had put together, and you were like, fuck it, I'm going to do it.
Oh, really?
There was a dropout, yeah. So
that's a cool story.
yeah, I said, fuck it. I'm gonna go do it. So I just knowing, like, you guys, like, there's so many people that can fit in these rooms. So if there's a slot that's not taken, so yeah. I jumped in. And I journeyed with our first group then that came through, our first responder group. And that was the most beautiful Ibogaine journey I've ever had in my life. I kind of don't ever want to do Ibogaine again because it was just such a topper of just best case scenario. The medicine was so kind to me during that journey. The first time I needed a booster dose, I remember I couldn't get into it, which is probably why I was hit so hard on the next day, on the gray day, because I had that extra medicine in me. But I tell everybody, don't think anything about you I'm going to tell you guys why a little bit later. But don't think, oh, I've done so many psychedelics, or, oh, I have a high tolerance. I hear this all the time. People tell me, I have a high tolerance.
Yeah, I laugh when I hear that for sure. Yeah, we'll see.
So I didn't need as much medicine this time. And I remember after my 4th dose, the final dose, with this second journey with you guys, I vomited immediately, and I did what everybody else does. Oh no, I puked it all. I need more medicine, Trevor. So, now that I know Ibogaine so much better, I know that you can puke up all the medicine and stay in that journey. So I got taken right away. As soon as I took that second dose and puked, it was much like my ayahuasca experience, where you vomit in and you're gone. Mm-hmm. And I just melted into the floor. And I remember Isaac was over me, and he's like, are you okay? And I couldn't, no part of me, I was being taken. There was no part of me could say anything. I was just melting into the ground. But it was I think my respiration went down real far, but it was probably the best feeling in the world. It was just like melting into the earth, And then for 2 hours, in my mind, I'm going to say 2 hours, who knows how long it was for, but I had the most fun visual ride on Ibogaine ever. I thought it would never be anything like ayahuasca visualization wise, and it just cracked right open, and I was just in this just full-on 5D experience, like having the best time. And it put lights up that said 343 fund. It just said 343. Wow. And it like slapped this poster up that said 343. And then all these, those lights that you would see at a circus, circus lights going, started chasing around it. And then all these little hands came up from the bottom all around the screen going, all the little, and then, I remember I had asked to see, I want to talk to God, obviously. Show me God. So this big character comes out wearing this grass hat. It was just Iboga dressed up, okay? And he's wearing this grass hat, and he comes down, and he's got this grass skirt on. And it's like I don't know if you guys ever saw the Fraggles.
Fraggle Rock.
Fraggle Rock, yeah. Mm-hmm. Down in Fraggle Rock. So you got these, what are those things called? The
dozers.
Yeah, the dozer.
Build it, yeah.
So all those dozers, they were building this skirt. They were like in there. And this skirt just had a whole community in there, like Whoville. And I said, who is this? But I couldn't see the face of whoever this massive presence is in the screen. I said, who is this? And then, of course, it rolls down. I'm God. And I was like, shut up. It's not God. It was just making fun of me for asking to see God, basically. So I woke up super early from that journey. Like I came to, and I felt great.
Was there anything with Casey?
With that journey? Yeah. I don't remember offhand. I just remember they were just really they were very happy with what I'd done. If anybody works with Ibogaine, I think you experience that kind of them letting the attaboy that you get when you're under the medicine. Yeah. So I got that, and Jill actually ended up getting that too. When I sent my CEO through for Ibogaine. If you're going to work with anybody in this space, you've got to send them through for a journey first, for a couple of reasons. One, just straighten their ass out. And second, it's so much easier if you know the medicine to guide these grant recipients. So she was brave enough to come through, and they told her, she kept wanting to know what her angel number was. And she said that they're like, she's like, I want to know my angel number. And they're like, your angel number is 343.
Good.
So, I mean, if I looked at my notebook, I would be able to see more about my journey, but that kind of stood out for me, just so I knew I was on the right path for this 343 fund. And then I felt so good, and Doc released me. I was immediately like, can I get my IV bag and get downstairs? Because I wanted to go talk to Brianna. Mm-hmm. And they're like, she's not even here yet. So I wait, they make you wait around here.
We monitor your heart for the first 12 hours of your treatment, and we'll let you leave the treatment room once you've had those IVs, which is at about that 12-hour mark.
Yeah. So I was like coming in,
But to be honest, when I did it last time, I'm like, get me out of here, man. They're like, what? I'm like, give me my IV downstairs. I'm out of here.
So you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So I was doing that, but I wasn't Trevor. So I stayed in the room, and they gave it to me, and I didn't need any help. I couldn't get off the floor the first journey here. I was up there all day long, and then I could have done a Broadway musical on that gray day. I felt great. I didn't understand why nobody else felt great. I was so just light, and I felt great. Doc was like, cleared me right away. He was like, he's like, you seem okay. And I said, is that unlike earlier? And I said, is that normal? And he said, no. And so, yeah, I'm going to knock on wood right now. And probably, look, I don't know if I'll ever have an Ibogaine journey again, but I guess I did, because that's what I was going to tell you guys about. When you don't ever get cocky with Ibogaine and don't think, oh, I have a high tolerance. Last time I came here, I came just to support a group. And Trevor, it's common to get a microdose when you're supporting a group. It just helps you, stay up and whatnot, connect with the people in the room. For the listeners out there thinking, what do you mean they're handing out doses to other people? But it's pretty traditional, right, guys?
Yeah, I would say a low dose, not necessarily micro.
But whatever, low dose.
Yeah, and you're not the one there that's responsible for everybody. You can kind of lay down if you need to for a little while. And
I had no responsibilities.
Yeah.
So I was just merely a watcher in the room. So for everybody, for clarification, I had no responsibilities. Thank God. Because Trevor came up to me and he said, whatever he said, do you want this or this? And I was being told by my intuition, don't take the less. But my ego, I said to Trevor, what do you say, Trevor? And Trevor said, I say take more. And I said, yeah. So I took it and I walked off and I started to go take it, and I thought, my intuition was like, how you don't want to do that. You just don't want to do it. So I went back to Trevor and I was like, sorry, Trevor, can I have less? And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. So he gives it to me. And of course I'm still thinking, maybe I should have just taken it. But thank God. I take that dose, and about 30 minutes later, sweating my ass off and so sick. I can't even stay in that room. I end up going downstairs for 2 hours. I'm in a full Ibogaine journey, visuals, everything downstairs in one of those bedrooms while everybody's journeying upstairs, just having the fight of my life, laughing. Because I'm like, I can't thank God I didn't take the extra. I think I crawled back up there like 4 hours later, and everybody thought I just sat in the room with them all night long, all my guys, the first responders. And I couldn't tell them, I wasn't going to be like, say anything, but.
They know now.
Ooh, yeah. I had not a difficult ride, but I just knew to just wait till it was done with me. And then that humbled me from ever thinking there was any rhyme or reason to weighing Ibogaine, or if you vomit it out, you're not going to have a ride. No.
Yeah, I learned that when I gave my dad a microdose and he had a full-on journey. It wasn't great. We weren't planning for that at all.
Those unplanned Ibogaine journeys.
Yeah.
Woo!
Wow. So how many people have you sent down here so far?
Sent here?
Yeah.
I don't know. We've sent over 50 people for over 50 first responders and spouses and or. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Not easy work.
Not easy work, no. So definitely getting more comfortable with it now, though. It's just becoming, when you first start speaking, when you out yourself about psychedelics, there's a period that you go through. Just, I would say just general judgment. So but someone's got to take it for the team. I mean, the people that have gone through, it's kind of up to them. My husband would see me heal and be like, okay, I want to try that, or I don't. But, at the end of the day, if people are hurting and they see people that were hurting that are no longer hurting, they're going to say, what did you do? Right.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So what are you seeing?
What do you mean?
With guys, that are coming through?
Oh,
what
so
are you?
A lot of guys that are, I'm seeing a lot of guys that have either like residual trauma that are aware that their job damaged them, or we're seeing people that are just coming through with their childhood trauma that landed them in the rescuer position of first responder to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And how about the transformations?
Amazing. It's funny because you do so many of these. You guys have done so many more than me, so I'm sure you're just like, oh, come on.
It doesn't get old. No. It doesn't get old.
So, but what's like an average, I don't know if you can do this, but what's an average person that you're looking to give a grant to dealing with? And what are you hoping to see afterwards, or what are you seeing?
The average person that we're giving a grant to is numbed out by pharmaceuticals. They've hit a wall as far as treatment goes. When we're giving grants, we look at the grant applicant, and you're going to have tried some failed modalities on there. You know, if it says, I tried AA meetings, and you haven't tried anything else. There's no psychotherapy, there's no EDMR, there's no meditation, there's no breath work. There's no other modality that's been tried. There's no SSRI on there. You didn't try anything with a doctor. Then we tend to not start with a psychedelic, right? So we'll either have people that are just, hey, I'm still suicidal, and I've been taking all this stuff that this doctor's been telling me to take for so long, and I'm having to, I don't sleep in the absence of sleep meds, and I'm angry. There's a lot of anger going on, and it's either they've come to a point in their marriage that's brought them to change, or they've come to a point with their child that's brought them to change. So 9 times out of 10, there's another factor of a loved one that's been involved in the collateral damage of their career, so to speak, or the damage that they got on the career. We also deal with a lot of, if it's police, there's a lot of police officers rocking TBIs out there just every single day. So they're finding this therapy. Everybody tells me podcast number 30 from the Sean Ryan show is their favorite. I believe Trevor is on that one. So I hear that a lot, and they're looking for the TBI relief from the information that came through on that. So failed, treatment-resistant depression, anxiety and depression, and then we have the other, like the childhood trauma or on-the-job trauma. There's a lot of on-the-job injuries that just don't get addressed properly, and then they have to stay on the job, because they got to put food on the table, and then they're working kind of from that injured perspective, and then the emotional injuries that kind of compile on that, and it ends up being the straw that breaks the camel's back. So when we get people, I always say, I remind myself, we're talking to people that are in their healing, but they're pre-journey, and a pre-journey person is a completely different person than post Ibogaine and 5-MeO-DMT. So,
without sharing any names, can you share some cases or some guys in particular where they were at and
so
worked out?
So there's 2 of us in the organization that do all the intakes. It's me and this other guy, Ethan, and he's our Ethan Abend. He's a retired ESU officer. So we'll kind of look at them, and if we see somebody is going to have to, we know, okay, this person has put on the grant that they want to go to Ambio Life Sciences. There's questions on there about, are you taking current things? You guys, there's a big list of counteractions. So there's a lot of work for a lot of these guys to get off of these meds that are going to put their life in danger if they're journeying with Ibogaine. So I think Trevor says, it's the cost of admission, right? Mm-hmm. So these people have to come off of this. So there's a list we keep, and of people that are suicidal that we're just checking in every day. And part of working with you guys that I like so much is that their coach we can kind of give the coach a heads up, hey, we got to keep a spot on this guy. So that list is always the most transformative. You had a guy come through I think on April 14th. I know that by heart because it was in my calendar. Just I got to get to April 14th with this guy. And he went through and he took a picture of himself before his journey. I shared the picture with you. And you could see in his eyes, like he's just, if he had a gun near him, he would have eaten a bullet. You could see it in his eyes. And then he took a picture, I think like 10 days after he got down here. So what is that, 7 days post-journey, 8 days post-journey? And he looks like he's been baptized. There's no other way to describe it. He's back. Like it's the soul surgery. It's the death of self, of that old self that you've been clinging to. And then you literally see this rebirth of this new human. And the thing that I like the most about these rebirths is it's like they've never seen the ocean before. It's like they've never felt sun on their skin. And the only thing I can say to attribute to that is that these people are so blocked with all of the tools that they've been trying to use to keep themselves from feeling, that now they've removed the pain. None of them need any of those pharmaceuticals anymore. If anybody's an alcoholic going into this and they've had to detox coming off, nobody's an alcoholic when they're finished. It's a conscious choice if you want to start going again, but none of their bodies are chemically addicted to any of those substances anymore. And I don't think I've ever seen anything else on the planet do that. So it's powerful stuff.
Awesome. Good work. So how do people find you? What are your plans upcoming? I think it needs to be said again in case they didn't catch what you said, it's Casey's insurance policy that you have used to fund this so far. I know there's been some donors, and thank you to those donors, but this is, can you give me I gave you shit for that when I heard that. Do you want to share your thought process around all that?
Yeah. So I told a couple of people that I was going to be funding this organization with my husband's life insurance policy, but my thought process around that was, I had an extraordinary circumstance and as far as the support that I had for my integration with my healing journey through this man. So he had received so many allocates as a New York City firefighter, and he just saved so many people through his lifeguarding, through his firefighting. He saved our neighbor across the street who had fell down some stairs, gave him CPR, brought him back. This guy was just always saving people. So there wasn't any thought in my head that I'm not going to do this. I just took his life insurance policy and funded the 343 fund, and I just made a commitment to give that policy to first responders so that my husband's life could continue paying it forward and providing this healing for people. And it has been the most healing process for me personally. I mean, everybody does stuff at the end of the day because it makes them feel good. And this really makes me feel good. So.
And that money's not going to last forever. So where can people find you and donate money to this incredible cause?
So they can find us at the Casey Skudin 343fund.org or 343fund.org. They can click the donate button if they want to help pay it forward with first responders, and they can click the grant request button if they are a first responder that is suffering and would like to access psychedelic grant for the purpose of their personal healing.
Amazing.
Anything else we need to know?
I would like to ask you, besides Ibogaine, what other psychedelics or what other tools are you guys reaching or giving to people to?
We do, so when we put these saunas in, well, let's talk about the grant applicants first. But besides Ibogaine, we've had our grant applicants have gone through for ketamine, and ayahuasca, and 5-ME or MDMA. So that's what people are asking for. Number one, Ibogaine. That's the number one box that gets checked for first responders on our grants. It is super rare for somebody to say that they want to go on an ayahuasca journey, and that always makes me know that, oh boy, you just got called to ayahuasca. So, but if you go on an ayahuasca journey with our organization, you're going to the jungle, and you're sitting with Shipibo and our generational healers, maestros. So, so the other thing that we do with our programs, we give the saunas and the cold plunge for that contrast therapy, and we teach them breath work. The reason why we like to teach first responders the breath work is because your breath is what you have from beginning to end. It's the only thing you're going to have with you the entire time that you're here. And to be able to access that tool and soothe your parasympathetic or activate your parasympathetic nervous system and provide yourself your own healing and calming, I think is something that should be taught to everybody in elementary school. So we're teaching them a little bit later. Also, there's been a lot of studies post 9/11. They put saunas down at ground zero, and they tracked these guys that had the immediate effects of being able to detox on that job site. And the results show that they did better than the ones that didn't do that. So the thought is just to get these departments and the first responders kind of thinking about using, personal care, self-care, and kind of changing the just what goes on inside that house. If your leaders are working on personal care and wellness in a department, then it's going to trickle down from the top. Like, that's your example. The creme de la creme is doing this. What's everybody's goal? New York City firefighters want to be a rescue firefighter. Yes. And if these rescue firefighters are the example of self-care, then it's going to trickle down to the other ones. So we're not giving away these infrared these saunas and these cold plunges to every department. We're only giving it to the top tier. So if you have a department, and I'm scared to say this online, but if you have a department, if you're the top of your city's department, and we'll take a look at you if you want to do some contrast therapy. But we actually send a breathwork practitioner in there to teach them. Nice. So they know how to do it. And then the breathwork we do to prep. You guys do breathwork here for your grant recipients. So we are starting to do it with everybody before they come here, so that they have that it's familiar. Because when people come and learn 3-part breathwork, for 55 minutes, if you're doing 3-part breath work for 55 minutes and you're doing it properly, you're having a psychedelic experience with just using your breath. Mm-hmm. I know, because I've done it, and I'm sure you guys have too. So we're then again trying to give them another tool. You don't need to come do 5-MeO DMT. All you have to do is breathe. And if you really enjoyed that journey, you can access it again very safely.
It's nice that you mentioned that, because you can get there without psychedelics. Yeah. You can get there without psychedelics. And
the price is right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Wow. Well, this is the first week. And I think because your group is the first going through this week, that we're going to be using new medicine. Mm-hmm. That's yeah. So last year I got the first export license from Gabon. And so before this, I don't know if you know, but like when you would come through before, the Ibogaine that we're using, it's semi-synthetic, we call it. So it's an extract from another plant. We take out vocungine, and then they're turning that into Ibogaine. So it comes out very, very pure Ibogaine. And now we've got this export license to be able to take Tabernante Boga. We're working directly with these traditional communities, and they've been planting for a long time, and extracting all the alkaloids that are in Iboga. And then it's being processed in Canada and coming out this very pure pharmaceutical grade, but all the alkaloids in the plant. So this will be the first group. We've done all of the testing, and so we know how to dose it and that it's safe and everything like that. But now we're going to start implementing it in the retreat. So you guys are going to be the first ones doing that.
Well, now I have FOMO.
Yeah, well, now you might need another little loaf.
I think I'm going to have to take a microdose. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, right on. This group that we have is so fun too. We did something different in their prep. We took them out to dinner before. It's always awkward when you're crossing the border to come to Tijuana and you have this group and you're like, okay guys, we're all going to go down and to Tijuana and do some Ibogaine. Nobody knows where they're going. Get in this car and everybody sit really close together, and it's going to be dead silent in the car while you drive down. So I thought, well, that we could kind of bond them earlier and get them going through. So it's cool that they're going to be the first group to do this because they're already like pretty connected. So I'll be interested to see. Yeah, I'm excited for them. Right on. Way to go, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Woo!
And it's part of that feeling that we get to have this ripple effect of healing happening. So it's able to benefit quite a lot the community that grew the plant and other projects there that are working on helping other communities get plantations started. And so
I think that's so important that organizations think about the giving back, because so often, I know, Trevor, I know that you guys use the 5-MeO DMT rather than Bufo for the purpose of the preservation of the toad, which I really like that about this organization. And the fact that, Jonathan, you just said that it's so important to you, the giving back aspect for the community, so that where we actually are accessing, this only comes from one place in the entire world, correct?
Well, when we're doing it semi-synthetically, that's part of the benefit, was that it could come from other places and where it was these plants were already being cultivated. But there's also this feeling that, endemically, it comes from a very small, very concentrated region in Central Africa. And so for the way that the program is structured to provide benefits back is through something called the Nagoya Protocol, which is a UN treaty, and it's designed to be able to protect people who have traditional knowledge so that they can be benefiting from the use that's happening outside, right?
Yeah.
So that's what, there's alternatives that we can look to. And here's this opportunity to just do it right so that there's this, ripple of benefits that's going all the way down the chain everywhere where we're working with this medicine and touching it, so that it's just, beautiful all the way through. Yeah. That's the intention.
Yeah, I like that. And that's also why I like working with you guys, because I feel like that even here in this house, like, there's so much attention to the tradition. You can't obviously bring people to Africa. We can bring them to Tijuana, Mexico, but Africa is just a whole nother level. So when you're walking down the stairwells of this house and you're seeing a Bawiti tribe member on the wall looking at you, or you're seeing one in the masks or something like that, it's just, and you're listening to the music and shaking that rattle in the beginning. You really set the scene. It's the closest you can be to that traditional experience while still being so comfortable and feeling so safe in a medical environment. So kudos to the staff for just being the example. So
thank you. And thank you, and thank you, and thank you. It's a real treat knowing you. It's great being your friend. Thank you for supporting my wife so much as she learns and grows. You guys have been super close, and you're going to have a beautiful week, and then we'll see you down here for a baby shower in a little while as well, I think.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that too. There's also Ambio babies coming. It's going to be a great 2024.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you next time.